Let's meet our panel. We'll start with Micaela Bomhack. She's president and CEO of Rite, a Milwaukee-based maker of industrial safety, security, and productivity solutions, including loading dock systems, industrial doors, safety barriers, high-volume, low-speed fans, and smart connected products. Micaela leads the third-generation family ownership group of Rite, which has 6 global manufacturing facilities, and within the last several years opened a new headquarters in Milwaukee's Walkers Point neighborhood. Welcome, Micaela. Next, we have Jag Reddy, who has been president and CEO of Mayville Engineering Corp. Since July 2022. MEC was founded in 1945 and today has more than 2,300 employees across 20 national locations. The company provides prototyping, tooling, fabrication, coating, assembly, and aftermarket service to a variety of industries, including commercial vehicles, construction, power sports, agriculture, and military. The company has also entered the data center market within the last year, or earlier this year, with an acquisition. Welcome, Jag. Next, we have Stacey Walthers Naffah. She is the 4th generation in her family to lead Milwaukee-based Walthers, the world's largest distributor of model railroad equipment. The model railroad industry faces significant challenges as most of its products are made by contract manufacturers in Southeast Asia with no existing infrastructure available to produce domestically. In addition to its own proprietary branded product lines, Walthers also distributes 175 other lines of model railroad products. Welcome, Stacey. And last but not least, we have Jake Vanderkooy, who is CEO of Menomonee Falls-based Benz Metal Products. He's been in that role since 2021. He represents the 3rd generation of family leadership for the company, which specializes in steel, stainless, and aluminum fabrications. Benz Metal Products handles custom one-off projects and longer-run production for a range of industries. The company has doubled its size and expanded to multiple locations and been recognized for its growth in the BizTimes Future 50 program in recent years. Welcome to the panel, Jake. Well, let's start with, maybe I gave everyone the brief introductions to each of you, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your company, maybe a little history, a little more detail on the products you make, markets you serve, things like that. Let's just go a little deeper on the introductions. Micaela, why don't you start us off?
Good afternoon. Great to be here today. Hite is a 3rd-generation family-held company. So it was started by my grandpa in 1965. My dad bought the company from him in 86, and I'm now the leader of the 3rd-generation ownership group, and really, really proud to be that. So I'm also CEO at Rite, and Rite does a lot of things you'd see in distribution and manufacturing centers. So we've got a couple of divisions: the material transfer zone, which is from a customer's gate to about 100 feet within their facility. The core products we have today in those areas are loading dock equipment. So my grandpa invented what's called the vehicle restraint category, which prevents accidents when you're loading and unloading trailers. Then we've got the interior solutions group. Their core product is high-speed doors. They also do things like barriers, safety products, and a lot of things you'd see in that interior plant area. Then we've got a digital division that's over both of those business units, trying to use the data from our equipment and from our service line to create differentiation for our customers. And then we've got a fairly large distribution group. You might know it as Arbonne. Art and Bonnie were my grandparents. My dad creatively put their names together to build the name Arbonne. Arbonne is our sales and service channel. We cover in the U.S. about 60% of the geographic territories. We've got all geographically exclusive distribution and service, and the other remainder is covered by independent reps, of which we've had partnerships with for over 30 years, so long-standing partners. That's our skinny.
Cool. Jake?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Mayville Engineering Company, or MEC, was started in 1945 in Mayville, Wisconsin. It's in Dodge County, about an hour north of here. It was started by an entrepreneur and was an ESOP for many, many years until 2019, when the company went public. We're traded on New York Stock Exchange. We're primarily a tier one supplier to large machinery OEMs. Many of our customers, you'll recognize their names: John Deere, Caterpillar, PACCAR, which is Kenworth, and Peterbilt trucks, Volvo Mack trucks, Harley Davidson, Polaris, on and on. So we make everything from chassis to many of the products that these companies make, to fuel tanks, to on-highway trucks, to for large combines and tractors, large components, including some structures, to hoods on large tractors, etc. So we have a little over 25 manufacturing facilities across the country. We're 100% domestic manufacturer. So that's, I think, an important topic, and we'll get into it later today. There are not a whole lot of companies that can claim that we're 100% domestic manufacturer. 95% of our inputs are domestically sourced, and we're real proud of our 80-year heritage. The legacy end markets have been performing okay. But we have seen the trend of higher growth, higher margin end markets over the past year and a half or so. I made an entry into data centers with an acquisition earlier this year. So that is really helping us drive additional growth and productivity and capacity expansion into these new end markets we'll touch on.
Stacey.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Stacey Walthers Naffah, and I have the privilege of leading my family's fourth generation family business. We're 93 years old, and we're on the northwest side of Milwaukee, and we do use contract manufacturers, but in our history, we did manufacture on site. The business was founded by my great-grandfather in 1932, so in the Depression, when his other business was failing, and he started doing something that he loved. So he was an electrical engineer by training, and he really enjoyed his Lionel model train, and he liked figuring out how to make the trains move. And so he started helping people with information to teach them how to do that, and then he started making products, and then he started, and that's kind of how the origin of our business started, is helping people to understand how to enjoy a hobby that brings relaxation and fulfillment and learning to a lot of people. And so over time, we started producing more and more product. And then my grandfather, in his tenure, really expanded the distribution side of our business that brought on lots and lots of other brands of product. So we have a Walthers branded product in every category that you can imagine to build a little miniature world. And then we also distribute brands like Lionel and other brands that come from Europe, and we're importing from Germany and Japan, which are all big markets for actually our hobby, because there's a lot of trains there. So that's what we do. I didn't work in the family business other than where I was qualified to work. So I worked in the distribution center when I was young, but didn't know I was going to make this my career. Came back in 2009 after a whole different career doing something else, working in big ad agencies and publishers. And I came back animated by the idea of reinventing this hobby and inviting more people to join it, specifically young people. So came back in 2009 with that as our objective. So we carry on that information and that spirit of trying to invite new people in and try this very niche hobby and see how it might teach you the skills to potentially learn how to be a manufacturing professional, or learn the STEM and STEAM skills that our culture needs. So it's kind of a side door to manufacturing because we're not doing it on site. But I'm certainly been thinking about where some of those old machines are as we've been dealing with tariffs and our contract manufacturers who are primarily in Asia.
Jake?
Good afternoon. Jake, Benz Metal Products. We are a third generation company also. We've been family owned since 1972, started in 1945. And I'm actually first generation in the country, and the whole point of our family business was if the family needed a job when they came to the country, they'd have one. We are custom sheet metal fabrication, stainless steel, aluminum, steel fabrications, everything to customer specs, and we specialize in short run to medium run production runs.
Let's dive into the discussion here with kind of just wondering, how's the year going? There's been some turbulence, some ups and downs. Who knows where the economy may or may not be headed? How are things for your business? How's the year going? We'll come back to them this way. Jake, why don't you start us off?
So the first part of the year was plateau with the election and tariff uncertainty. I would say the last 4 weeks it's been chaotically busy again, and I think that's because everyone now knows the new normal. So overall, it's going to be a strong year again, but the first part of the year was a little uncertain as far as we weren't chaotically busy as we always are, and so it just felt like normal right now.
We're on a fiscal year, but I'll think in calendar terms. Our hobby is very seasonal, so people go in their basements and they enjoy building. It's a hobby that's traditionally our busiest time of year is January and February. So we were busy and having that normal season, and then we were significantly disrupted by the tariff situation, and so we had to go into a lot of scenario planning that was a distraction for our business. So my team was doing a lot of extra work on top of the normal work. So I feel like it's kind of now stabilized. Uncertainty is the word that businesses do not like. So we've kind of normalized that uncertainty to a certain extent, and we've kind of wrapped our arms around it. We did some pretty significant pivots and brought forward some things that offset some of the risk that we had kind of waiting in the wings. So we were real busy. But I feel like things are kind of normalizing, stabilizing a little bit. And now we're gearing up for our season, which we hope will kick up while people, when the weather, I don't wish that the weather will get colder, but I kind of wish the weather will get colder, because then people start enjoying our hobby. So remains to be seen. We're curious to see what consumer spending is going to do. So I'd say that we have some signaling that because of the prices that have been raised and because of just less discretionary spending, we'll see if our holiday season is going to be as robust as we would normally expect. But jury's out because it hasn't really hit yet.
For us, the year started pretty well, and we had Liberation Day. Even though, as a domestic manufacturer with significant inputs from local sources, we don't have direct impact on our business with tariffs. But what tariffs have done is put a damper on the rest of the economy, a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. So our customers started to slow down in their production rates and what they're producing. So by middle of the year, we start to see the slow trends start to kick in. I would say that the second half, I expect the tariffs to start showing up in cost of goods sold for many businesses. That might continue to impact demand for the rest of the year. On the flip side, with our new acquisition, that's going gangbusters because everyone's building a data center apparently in their basement, right? So, a lot of companies are looking for a significant amount of content to go into these data centers. As Wisconsinites, as we all know, right? There's Port Washington announcement, there's the Racine announcement, and phase 2 from Microsoft, and all of these projects. That's just a microcosm of what's happening in that space across the country. So there's significant demand for data center products, and we're obviously taking advantage of available capacity and then the demand that's coming in. So we expect the second half, to be better in a different end market than our traditional end markets.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone understand this economy? I used to think I had some pretty good prediction abilities. I'm becoming less and less confident in that skill. I would say we're on par with last year. I'm happy about that. I would not have expected that going into the year. So cautiously optimistic going into the back end of the year. Orders remain strong. Our backlog is converting at a little slower pace than we're used to, but still converting. So I would say weird dynamics, but shaking out about level with last year.
So I want to dig in a little bit on tariffs. Obviously, could probably fill up our entire conversation with that, but there's plenty more to talk about. And we'll start with you, Stacey, just in terms of what you're dealing with there, where you've got a product that just is not made domestically. You mentioned it, back in the day it was, but that's not the case anymore. So what are you dealing with in terms of trying to think about new sourcing options, potentially bringing stuff back? What does that whole equation look like for you? What have you been, all the creative scenarios you've been having to work through? What's that look like?
Big topic, 6-letter word in my house. Yeah. We're not supposed to talk about it. So I think that the short answer is we've just had to, we knew about this, right? So our hobby, it's a niche hobby, it's a small marketplace, it's primarily made up of small businesses. So we're one of the biggest businesses in the model railroad business, and all of the vendors that we serve are small businesses. So I would say that, like every business is dealing with stuff, but like our shock absorbers aren't as big, right? So we've had to just make decisions really fast. So I will correct myself because some of the product we made up on site up through the 90s, right in our facility, but our hobby has changed. Like anything has innovated, and actually there were capabilities that were developed in China and in Japan, specifically on like high-end locomotives. These locomotives come out of the box and they operate with a scale sound, or scale speed, they've got sound, they've got digital controls. These are $400 locomotives, and that skill set and that labor exists in China and Japan, and that's where it was never made here. So the economics of being able to have something that a customer can afford and then could come out and realize all those expectations, that didn't exist back in the 90s. So it's just evolved our hobby and the enjoyment of our hobby, which keeps people who were in the hobby for 50 years engaged and coming back and doing things. So things like injection plastic molded building sprues, where you can make a building kit. Sure, we had those machines, and those are the things that are easier to imagine bringing back, but I can't do that on a dime. We have all of our tooling. It has been moved to strategic partners who we've been working with in some cases for 30 years, and they're good partners who have the workforce. They've got not only available workforce, available infrastructure, they've got all of the kind of the economics right for a product that is a consumer good that's discretionary. So that's something we've been wrestling with in our minds for a long time, and so we've been thinking about offsets to what could we possibly do. So 7 years ago, for example, we came up with an idea of, well, what could we make domestically that would, serve our niche marketplace? And we came up with the idea of, like, let's do collectible trading cards, right? People are railroad enthusiasts, and they like to learn about train stuff. And so we had this business plan that we parked over here because it's domestically sourced, it's paper. And so we pulled that one off of the shelf, and that was on top of all the scenario planning and everything you're trying to do to figure out how you even decide whether to produce or not your locomotive, that for a while there had 145% tariff. That was not something we were going to be able to cash flow for a long period of time. Many of our suppliers who we distribute wouldn't have been able to do the same thing. So it wasn't just an us thing, it was a whole industry thing. So that's a lot right there, but one of the things that I have a bias for action and trying to solve problems, and so I also believe that we're more powerful together. So we banded together as an industry, and we formed a brand new coalition called the Hobby Industry Coalition to advocate for our position that we're not apolitical and just saying like, hey, we're just this little industry over here. Could we possibly get an exclusion? We're not going to make even a dent in the national deficit, and we don't have readily accessible alternatives, specifically for big product categories like locomotives, which is one of our primary revenue drivers. So could we consider being excluded? So that work continues, and we formed a board and a new organization to try to just advocate with reason, and that work continues. Mm-hmm. So it's been a lot of things, figuring out your pricing strategy, your production strategy, figuring out how to get your team through it, figuring out how to pivot and do something new, just in case something else, doesn't materialize. And I will say the other really interesting thing in our business, and maybe if you know a model railroader, the used market is a really big deal. So all of a sudden, there's available inventory here in the United States that people are reselling. So we're just kind of watching all of those things to see which thing's going to pop and how can we optimize our business to ride out this storm.
Mm-hmm. How are you thinking? That's a whole lot of stuff that you're doing.
A lot of stuff.
To try and navigate the tariff.
A lot of caffeine.
Piece of the equation. So caffeine, a lot of run of the coffee shop. Yeah. But also, so you got all that going on, and then you have just day-to-day running the business, all that. How are you trying to balance that? Because that applies whether it's tariffs or something else. I mean, every business has example of these of there's the day-to-day, but then there's this fire pops up, that fire pops up. How are you trying to balance those two things?
Yeah, the short version is your team. You have to have a fabulous team to do anything, right? And then you got to create systems and processes by which you enable yourself to be flexible, to pivot. So that's my 2 short answers after giving you a whole bunch of long stuff.
I guess for everyone else on the panel, tariffs, how is that impacting your business? What are you seeing, good, bad, indifferent, for your business?
For us, it's about less than 5% of our inputs are imported. So what we've been doing is aggressively going after some of the aluminum imports from Canada to be resourced into the U.S. 100% of our steel is domestically sourced. That's a good, it's a good thing for us. Castings, forgings, things like that come from China. We're actively trying to resource out of Mexico and other locations, but the price that Chinese suppliers offer, no one else can beat that, right? So that's another challenge. But we contractually are able to pass on those costs to our customers, so we'll continue on that path. On the flip side of the tariffs, being a domestic manufacturer, we are seeing significant increase in demand for our products and services, right? There's a lot of customers who are either new to Mac or have worked with us in the past, might have outsourced their products to Asia or other locations, and now are calling us back and wanting to know how much would it cost to make it in the U.S. and make it in one of our factories. So our teams have been really busy, responding to these requests. But the challenge is, given that every morning we wake up and there's a new tweet that will change the equation completely, so that is really hard for our customers to make a decision, right? So they don't know what a month from now what the tariff rate might be, right? For the country they're currently manufacturing their goods in. So that uncertainty is keeping many of our customers in making the decision to bring production back to the U.S. But eventually, right, once all of this calms down, right, we are hopeful that this will positively impact domestic manufacturers like Mac in the long run.
I should say one of the constraints we have is we have very small MOQs. So the people who manufacture don't often want our business, right? So that's the tricky part. We're a small industry, small stuff, small MOQs. That doesn't necessarily track with what manufacturing businesses are set up to do. And we do have domestic manufacturers. There are some, but they have a hard time keeping up with how to be an effective manufacturer in an environment like this. So we're trying to actually advocate not just for those of us importing product and using contract manufacturers overseas, but also helping the American manufacturers and figuring out how to create this new ecosystem that might do some here and some elsewhere. So I wanted to make that point because it's a tricky one for us that we haven't, that's why we've been thinking about it for so long.
Yeah, so tariffs for us have actually opened up a pretty good opportunity because we have a lot of new customers that are doing extruding and stamping that their customers have to short back in the States, but they can't do the complementary work to it like the machining or rolling or powder coating. So it's allowed our quote volumes to go up a lot to help those people that need to bring the work back domestically.
Go ahead.
Biggest challenge for us, there's a device called a leveler, which connects the bed of a truck to a building floor. Those are made of a very specific grade steel in our case that allows us to give one of the best warranties in our space. That steel is only made in Bremen, Germany, nowhere in the U.S. So that's been our thorn in our side. Other than that, we pretty much manufacture to market. Because of that, we're testing a different grade of steel that you could get in the U.S. However, probably the biggest variable for us has been U.S. steel manufacturers raising their prices. So actually tariffs have hit us harder on the U.S. steel side than outside of the U.S. So that's been our biggest challenge. Managing around it, you can't really control it, right? So the hardest part has just been staying on top of all of the changes. How do we make sure we're prepared? How do we make sure we're making the right choices given those changes? And it's just been a distraction in that regard. But the team's done a really nice job working through that and working with external parties to make sure we've got all the relevant information to make the right decisions.
Jake and then also Jag, as you've seen this kind of increase in demand and quote volume, is there any challenge of just managing that inbound and like, okay, what do we go after? What do we not go after? I'm sure the potential customers are looking everywhere for sources, and just how have you kind of navigated that piece of the equation?
Yeah, we're redirecting resources from one portion of our business to another portion of our business. So as the commercial truck and agriculture markets are down, right, we're pulling resources out of those businesses, putting them into the data center and other parts of our business that's seeing a significant demand in RFQs that we have to respond to pretty quickly. So just shuffling, our resources and manning some of these, proverbial phone and fax lines, right? So that's what we're trying to do to manage that inflow and responding quickly as soon as we can to respond to our customer requests.
So the challenge for us, is knowing if I'm chasing fool's gold or not, right? Because a lot of this stuff requires tooling and stuff, so it's a long sales process. We're so used to custom, quick turns, but if you get the work, it's great. So now as tariff rates keep changing, they keep just saying, well, we'll just keep it overseas now, and then, like I say, the next morning, the next tweet comes out, and oh, now it's alive again. So that's been the challenge, is to sift through what's fool's gold and what you can actually go after.
Mm-hmm. Question from the audience, kind of similar to what I had, but there's no shortage of things causing turbulence in the market. They list historical supply chain disruptions, inflation, labor shortages, strained consumer balance sheets, etc. The question: what key things are you hyper-focused on as you execute on your strategies and mitigate risks?
I can start. We have a 10-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 1-year plan. And we've got the privilege of being extremely long-term in our thinking. So I would say there's always turbulence. There's some positive things that have happened too, which is good. But we tend to try to manage to our plan unless there's something that absolutely forces us to pivot to it. So I would say there's no huge turbulence that has taken us totally off of course. I think we've got a team that really believes in the plan. We've got customer value sitting in front of us that's worth going after, and we're still invested in sticking to that plan. I would say the biggest challenge in doing that is we've got a lot of excited leaders that see what we could become. And because of that, trying to do capacity planning has been a focus this year. So how do we make sure we're giving our people digestible plates, prioritizing in the right ways, and allowing our people to raise their hand sometime and say, I've got too much on my plate, we got to pause something. So that's been a big focus for us this year.
For us, as a public company, we got to look at the quarterly results and then continue to manage and control what we can control, even in an uncertain environment. At the same time, we continue to invest for the long term. We started, 3-4 years ago now, a significant investment in robotic automation, cobots, continue to drive productivity and efficiencies in our operations. We're continuing to invest in, newer technology machines. And then, this year, right, we're beginning to look at software tools to improve efficiencies in functions within the office, whether it's robotic process automation, AI tools. We just did our first, AI hackathon across the company to look for, different use cases where we can deploy some of the newer AI tools that are coming up, right? So we're looking at every area of our business to, standardize and to make it more efficient so that, when the demand comes back, we can be, more productive. Right? So that's been our focus. The investments continue, and, though we have to manage short term, right, we're looking at the long term. We want to be here for the next 80 years, right? So how do we continue to invest in the business? Mm-hmm.
I would say we are focusing on the customer and figuring out how to execute on our vision. So I get a little meta about our vision to build a more connected community where the little things matter. I think that our hobby matters. I think having fun matters. I think connecting and building things matters. So we're trying to figure out how to tie not just making stuff and selling stuff. We don't want to just do that. We want to actually facilitate that experience. And I think that if we can do that, then that helps guide our efforts. So we're taking some of the existing product that we have that has a stable supply chain, and we're figuring out how to prioritize going out and inviting more people to participate. We have a very cool program with senior living and with youth and this collectible trading cards thing, which just is like repositioning the thing we already did and going out to market to try to engage people. So I think our bright North Star is that vision and connecting with the end customer at the end of the day, and delivering on trying to make this a sustainable business. I'm fixated on 100 years, 100 years plus. I'm at 93. So we got plans, but the customer at the end of the day is the boss. So that's how I'm focusing, or trying to focus the team.
So right now, we're going through a big ERP, MRP software
Doing that too.
integration, and it's been a painful process, but it's been good for our future growth. And then the other thing we're really focusing on is actually our vendors and making good relationships with them, because they've spoiled us a long time, and now as they're getting busy, what I assumed I could get in 2 days, now is 2 weeks, and have an open dialogue and partnerships with them instead of just being very transactional in the past. So that's been a big focus for us also. Like, conquer those two things, the customer gets taken care of.
With that vendor piece, is it, just as much as just establishing the relationship or deepening the relationship, or what kind of things are you doing to try to work at that?
Well, so with our new software, trying to get them better forecasts too, so they can keep products on hand, and keeping them more in the loop, and then having them tell me when they're going to start falling behind, or they'll start volunteering information like, hey, we got a truck coming up at the end of the week. Do you have anything you need? Instead of me missing that truck and waiting a whole nother week. So they'll start just giving me information instead of me having to ask for it.
Micaela, to follow up on something you mentioned, the idea of the capacity planning and encouraging folks to put their hand up when maybe the plate's getting too full. How are you going about doing that? People maybe are reticent to call uncle and say, I can't take more. How do you go about encouraging people to do that while also being productive and driving the business forward?
Really good leadership team. We've got a strategic planning process, so we're in the middle of that now. A couple years ago, we got much more rigorous about clear KPIs, what exactly are our goals, cascading objectives, all those things. It's really just the next step in our maturity. So making a consistent process to measure how many people are getting pulled into different projects, and then, I personally will sit in meetings and promote, hey, I want us to set stretch goals, but if we get halfway there, that's a win. And I'm pretty clear about, I'd rather you called uncle and push pause than give our customers something that's not to the caliber we'd expect, or do an internal project that's not to the standard our employees should expect, right? So I think a lot of it's leadership. I think the other part is just setting a plan that we think is manageable and then being willing to adjust over time. So doing a lot of that and making sure we're communicating with our people in ways that promotes raising your hand when you need to, especially with tariffs. That threw a lot of work at people that wasn't intended at the beginning of the year, right? So making sure if I have half my day now spent trying to forecast given tariffs and what we need to do with pricing, I probably can't expect the FP&A team to do the same thing they had in their plan for the second quarter, right? So promoting flexibility, talking about it, communicating, and then making plans that are flexible in nature, giving people permission to push back on the plan when we're not able to meet it, and making sure they know that's okay.
I want to talk about manufacturers kind of going off or pushing into new areas. So you have the digital services and the connected products. Mayville Engineering, you guys went into data centers, new market. We have the trading cards. Jake, you guys, I know, have brought more stuff in-house to kind of be a one-stop shop. So just manufacturers kind of looking beyond, like, okay, this is our core thing, and adding services, adding additional pieces to bring more value to customers. I guess, what's the process there? What's the creative thinking that has to go into that to be a different business tomorrow than you were today? What goes into some of those things?
I can start. Regarding our entry into data centers and critical power, we started a little over a year ago working with our board to think about how do we diversify out of our legacy end markets. Many of the end markets we currently are in, agriculture, construction, commercial truck, etc., they're pretty highly cyclical end markets. They come in cycles, they go up, they go down. So over the last 80 years, right, we would just staff up our factories and, bring the headcount down, right? So it's not an easy thing to do. So working closely with our board, we wanted to explore more stable end markets, maybe higher growth or stable growth end markets. We did extensive market studies and wanted to look at aerospace and defense, medtech, data centers, critical power. These are all the end markets we looked at. And then in the end, narrowed down to data centers and critical power. And then beginning of the year, then we started looking for acquisitions that would fit our framework that we agreed with our board. So that process then took us to this acquisition. We're successful in purchasing this company, closed the transaction on July 1st. Now, able to now offer rest of our capacity in 20-odd plants that we have to the data center customers. So as the largest independent metal fabricator in the country, we're immediately able to access significant demand from large companies like Eaton's, ABB, Schneider Electric's, Flextronics, and so on and so forth. None of them were our customers in the past. So with this strategy that was fully laid out, vetted, aligned with our board, and then, going through this acquisition, we were able to significantly change the arc of our business for the future. Much higher margins, much higher growth rates, and hopefully much less cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
We created a process probably 7 years ago to amplify our strategic planning capabilities and then drill it into execution. It was an approved board process, and it's designed to grow EBITDA, and anyone could bring forward an idea and had to go through this 5-step process and bring forward a business plan that would possibly, either offset risk or pursue opportunity. So that's where the trading cards one came out. So you got to scan the landscape, see what is our unique strength, and see how we could leverage that. So we had that process kind of started, and then the pandemic hit, and actually we were a beneficiary of the pandemic. While this has been challenging for us, our business was booming in the pandemic because everybody was home and looking to control the crazy world by just building their own little one that operated the way that they wanted it to. So on the other side of that, so that kind of hit pause for a while. But I would say that systematic approach to pursuing opportunity in any business, you got to scan and figure out what's the right way to do it, and then figure out how to operationalize that. It's been a trick to figure out how to do that on top of what we've always done before. So I think we're finally getting to that place where you could put a new opportunity next to something we've always done, like the tooling for a new locomotive or something, and side by side them. So that's the disciplined process in theory that we had been using all along. I would say it's been a little bit less than the discipline we want to, but I think we're going to kick that back up. But I think really good ideas come from things like that, a disciplined approach. So that's a way that we pursued it. And then I'm a big fan of blue ocean strategy. The idea of where are you in a bloody ocean in your business, and where should you step away and look where nobody else is playing. And I think the collectible trading cards is a great example of that. Our market, many people inside our company are like, what the heck are you doing? I don't get it. And then you have people, some who see it and get it, and hopefully that goes outside of our niche marketplace. So blue ocean strategy is one of the things I strongly recommend.
So for us, we started really focusing on becoming completely vertically integrated for our customer supply chain. It allowed us to widen our services, but our job was to make the customer's job as easy as possible purchasing metal components. So we went that route, which has worked really well for us. And the other thing we did is look just for good customers like everyone does, but we don't tie ourselves to an industry. So to me, if you're looking to order metal fabricated components, doesn't matter to me what industry you're in. So we didn't pigeonhole ourselves to just one specific sector.
Mm-hmm. In our case with digital, really was customers, vision, and people. So on the customer side, our customers will often ask us, should I buy this piece of equipment or should I fix my current piece of equipment? And if you look at the way we answer that question today, it's okay. If you're lucky, the sales rep will go back and look at your service history, but it's not that easy. AI will make it easier. And the project we're invested in now will make it easier. If not, the customer is going to get your best guess, right? So you've had this piece of equipment 12 years. I've come to fix it a lot. My hunch is if you bought a new piece of equipment, you'd save by CapExing that new piece of equipment. right? And you get your best guess. And most of the time, our sales reps are pretty damn good. They're pretty spot on would be my guess, but it's not perfect, right? So now if you think about Pepsi, Pepsi pays their employees to a budget, right? So if I miss my budget, I get dinged on my bonus. That's a lot of companies, right? That's a lot of companies that pay that way. So if you could give me surety that I'm going to hit my budget and I can pitch my boss on what that budget should be, I get a lot of benefit out of that. So today we do a lot of things called global account surveys. So we'll tell Pepsi or another big company, hey, across all your facilities, here's what we anticipate you're going to have to fix or replace in the next year or 2 years. And we give them that information. But it's really arduous. A lot of people in the field have to do a lot of work to do those surveys. So we can't do them for everyone. So we can give them really good answers to those questions, but not necessarily every single customer. So now if you think forward, you've got digital, right? So that's where that vision thing comes in. What can we do differently than our competitors? Well, we own most of our distribution or have really strong partnerships with our independent reps. We also have manufactured product and the data coming from that product. Our competitors either have one or the other. Most of them don't have both. So if you think about what we can do versus what our competitors can do, we can tell you with pretty sure information over time if you should fix the leveler on dock 4 or if you should replace it. So that's a vision, right? How can we get to that? And there's a whole lot of projects that have to hit to make that vision a reality. And beyond that, customers want to know if I invested in a dock lock or if I invested in a high-speed door, is it actually doing the job I asked it to do? For instance, are they overriding that dock lock every time a truck comes in so they don't have to use the safety device because it can be kind of annoying, take an extra step? Or are they actually using the tools the way they're supposed to? Are they closing that high-speed door, or are they putting a cart in front of it so that the sensor gets triggered and it can't close? So I'm losing a bunch of energy costs. Now with the digital component of our products, we can provide value to let our customers know are their employees actually using that equipment the way they intended it to be used when they bought it. So having vision on where we can take our company, how we can serve our customers in a different way going forward, and then ultimately people. I would say it took us a little too long, but we got there in investing in an expert to run the software side of our business. Prior to hiring this fella, Dave, who came from Dematic, we had no one in-house who really had a software background. And boy, did he know what to do, how to do it, and the team he needed to build it. So, investing in the right people to go after that vision and then empowering them to do that has been a nice recipe for us. And I'd bet on our team every day of the week to get our customers that value over time.
Question from the audience that kind of builds on that and touches back on some of the challenges we were talking about earlier. How do you inform, enlist, and inspire frontline employees as you, on many of these challenges or initiatives, in the case of the digital piece, just engaging the frontline in some of these strategic things that you're going after? What are keys to that?
I travel about 50% of the time to get in front of those people and hear what they have to say. So a couple years ago, we started doing enterprise planning. So thinking about the company as a whole, as we think about our customers 10 years from now, what are they going to look like and how are we going to solve their problems? And what do we need to look like to solve those problems? And you can imagine as you do that plan cascades through your whole business. If a whole bunch of your employees look at that plan and say, I don't agree with the thing on it, it's not going to be a super effective plan. So I spend a lot of my time getting in front of our folks, getting their perspectives, hearing what's actually going on the ground floor, getting in front of our customers, hearing what's going on in their worlds. And then I've got an internal communications team that's job is to take what's on our leadership team's plan and make it digestible across the organization. So they take our plan and turn it into bits and pieces and then make it a little more simpler for different audiences and make sure our people know where we're headed, why, how they fit into it, and make sure they look at my objectives and see exactly where they fit into accomplishing those goals.
Anyone else on the engaging the front line?
Sure. We're 2,500 employees across the company. It's hard to touch every single person, right? In person every year. So what we've been doing is, since I joined the company, is that we do quarterly town halls where every single employee gets on a virtual town hall. And then we do we have communicated our long-term goals in terms of revenue, profitability, et cetera. and then we do annual plan, and then all the incentives are based on our annual plan, so everyone can see and track, right, how we're performing, how they're performing to their goals and objectives. And then we also do a leadership summit every year, so that we bring about 35 to 40 people across the company. And then, and that same group then comes together once a quarter as well. And then last but not least, this year, I've been doing monthly roundtables. These are virtual roundtables, coffee with Jag, if you want to call that, right? So like this morning, right, I had 7, 8 employees that came from across the company. We were on a Teams call, just chatting about this one specific agenda, but talking about what they're seeing in their locations, in their functions, what's happening on the teams. So that's another way we communicate. And then last but not least, for 2 years in a row now, we started conducting our culture surveys. So we set a benchmark last year, and then now we just finished our second year culture survey, so now we're measuring against the benchmark from last year. We have internal metrics on how we continue to improve our culture going forward. So you can never communicate enough, but at least from our side, right, we're trying many different ways to reach and touch. And similar to Micaela, right, I travel, and when I'm in the plants, right, we try to do a mini town hall, and try to touch as many employees as possible.
I think you just have to engage with your people. I don't have 2,500 people. We're all under one roof. I mean, we have a hybrid work environment, but engage people with how the work they do every day connects to the mission. And so I just try to do that, and we storytell, and it's a challenge sometimes when somebody doesn't feel connected to that work. So as relevant, you bring the story that helps somebody understand that how they packed that box for the person who was waiting for that locomotive or that particular thing for a whole year. Packing it right matters. So we've got our engagement surveys, we've got our vision and our mission, and I talk about it in our quarterly meetings. And then it's on everybody's locker, and then I try to cascade that, like, what does this show up looking like in your day-to-day life? So I think just connecting how you show up to work to what we're trying to accomplish, and to the fact that we make people happy and we sell fun is what I try to do. I don't know that I always do it great, but we try to have some fun at work too.
Yep. So I'm actually, I think, pretty lucky because I only have 50 employees. So I get to say good morning to everybody. And we have a culture where the employees that are asking questions are the ones that care. I kind of feel like they ask a lot of questions when it's close to review time, but that's all right. The other thing we find is we are incredibly transparent. So in the past, a small business, you buy a big machine, right, and it's, let's say, $500,000, and you don't want to tell your employees because they'll think, like, why can't I get a raise if you can spend that? We kind of take that to, they could just Google the information, might as well just tell them. And they really appreciate that transparency, but that's how we get engagement. It's just part of, if you're asking questions, and I know you care, and that says something.
I also think transparency is really important when you're going through something hard. So walking up in front of the whole company and saying, this is a new situation, we've never been through it before, but we are working through a plan, and we'll communicate as you need to know the information you need to know, and we will be transparent with you. I think really, really important to not just talk about that generally in your business, but in particular when things are more challenging, because then they're going to make up their own story if you're not putting in information for them to latch onto and open the door to answer the questions. And sometimes they're going to ask you something that you hadn't thought about or you needed to think about. So I think engaging not just in the kind of the push, but in the pull of what people are thinking about is a really dynamic and important thing. And I really think we have to check in on our people. I mean, life outside of work is stressful for everybody, right? So I think we've really tried to check in with people. I even have it as like the first line item in my leadership team agenda. We had this during COVID, is we did like kind of a health check. How's our customers? How's our suppliers? How are you? How's your team? Just a quick around the room to say, because sometimes your team, that person's not okay to talk about that big thing you need to talk about today, and maybe tomorrow's a better day. So engaging your team means engaging the whole person sometimes, because they bring their whole person and their whole life to work. So I think it has to go a little deeper than just checking in with people in an engagement survey once a year.
I've had a number of questions from the audience about workforce and difficulty finding people, and What kind of benefits are you offering? Are you offering incentives? Is anything that any of you are finding that's working in terms of attracting, retaining, developing talent? I mean, we go back in time, you have the skills gap, and then the Great Resignation and quiet quitting, and there's probably a new term that I'll see on LinkedIn tonight or something. But I guess anything that what's working in terms of solving the talent equation?
Well, for us, a lot of our investments has gone into simplifying for the workforce. So some of the automation we brought in and some of the new machines, in manufacturing, you could have a really skilled worker work on a really old machine that only that person knows how to run. That doesn't work when you're trying to scale. So the other thing we've been really doing is cross-training. That's helped to have a smaller company to show them growth, having more skills, helping us solve the bottleneck areas we have by being able to jump on multiple work centers and stuff. So that's helped us retain, but the automation's helped us do more with the same workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I think distribution and warehouse jobs are really difficult to find people who are interested and engaged. So I think that cross-training has been a strategy. We're trying a whole new onboarding program this year, hopefully that will be more successful with our seasonal workforce. But really checking in on them and making sure that they're okay and that we're setting them up for success. So that's on one side of the business. When I first came back to the family business, I worked in big office buildings on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and we're at 60th and Florist in a warehouse building. It's a concrete box. It was harder to attract talent to come out there, and so I really, really pushed into the mission and people who want to solve problems and who are kind of just interested in meaningful work. So that was a flip side. I would say the hybrid work environment actually really helped me to get some people who might want work-life balance. And so I think I kind of have two different sides of the spectrum, but I've been able to attract some really, really interesting people who worked at big companies who just kind of believe in what we're trying to do. And so I think it goes back to connecting to our mission has been a strategy, and that used to stress me out a lot more than it does now, but I don't know, connecting people to what they do on whatever level they're in inside your company is a helpful thing.
Many of our manufacturing locations are in rural areas of the country. Many times we're probably the preferred employer in the county, right? So we've been very fortunate about retaining a lot of our employees over the years. As an ESOP, historically, a lot of our employees have a company stock, as their owners. So that's another retention that we've used over the years. And then, the biggest thing for us in terms of skills gap is Walthers, and I'm sure everybody in the room can understand that for 30, 40 years now in the country, right, we're short of Walthers. So we have creatively, developed partnerships and apprenticeships across the country, so that helps to fill that gap. And we're investing in automation and robots and cobots to, also bridge that gap. Last but not least, we moved our headquarters from Mayville, Wisconsin to Milwaukee about 8.5 years ago. That was primarily driven by the need to attract better talent and be able to access a bigger talent pool within the metro Milwaukee area. So our headquarters is right off of 94, right across from State Fair. That has really helped us attract a significant number of professionals to our company, and we're really fortunate to be able to do that in Milwaukee metro market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very similar investment. So we built a new headquarters in the 5th Ward starting in 2020. At that point in time, we had 5 buildings in Milwaukee, mostly in Brown Deer. The average age in those buildings was 55. So by the time we moved into the new building, the average age was 60. So we knew we'd need to recruit a lot of new bodies. We knew we needed to upskill talent a little bit. And so the decision to move downtown was frankly pretty straightforward and easy. Building a building during COVID, on the other hand, was a little different experience. I learned a lot from my dad, who was a real steady Eddie through the whole project and really stuck to his guns on this needs to be a place where people really want to come every day. And boy, was he right, especially as you looked at some of the troubles companies had in Milwaukee, getting people to come back into the office every day. We've really invested in our employees. So we do free breakfast, free lunch, We do a gym on campus, and then we do a lot of engaging stuff for our employees. We also bring in a lot of people super often. So we do customer fly-ins. We fly in about 600 companies per year, anywhere from 2 people from those companies to about 65. So a lot of people come through our building. Then we have a lot of ongoing training. So last week, I think we had 375 employees that came to town. We also did a celebration of service about a month ago. Another, I think 200 or so employees came in for that. So, if you're going to invest in a nice headquarters with a lot of amenities, the last thing you want is people outside of that headquarters to think of it as an unfair advantage to those in Milwaukee, right? So we've tried to really make it a place where we can create glue for our employees, and with a lot of new folks, wanted to create opportunities for people to mix, get to know each other, continue to build the secret sauce that has really allowed Hite to thrive. And I'd say in addition to that, we're just trying to invest in our people heavily. So a lot of management training, a lot of AI training, a lot of trying to equip people with skills to recognize how to work across skill sets, across different ways of working, versatile management styles, all those different things. So really just investing in our people and trying to make sure we hold on to those talented employees tight and do a good job recruiting top talent.
And certainly not everyone can do a nice, big, beautiful building in Walker's Point, but there's a whole menu of things there that people could pick from to incorporate in their own business. A couple of audience questions around AI, because it wouldn't be a panel discussion if we didn't at least touch on AI once. So this one, every company is talking about AI. How is your company approaching, they add in Industry 4.0, automation, AI, or data-driven decision-making? What challenges have you faced integrating legacy systems with newer technologies?
We're starting to integrate AI into like some of our admin stuff, like especially our quoting software and stuff, where the AI can read the prints and the dimensions and kind of start spitting out the formulas for us so that we can get everyone on the same page as far as quoting with the same philosophy. But that's a continual conversation we're having, as at some point we have to just hire someone that just knows AI to stay innovative and competitive to what's going on. But we've already started implementing what we can as far as some of our processes and stuff, just so we have consistency.
My team's using it very regularly in the marketing area. It just expands our capacity. So they actually they've added a team member named Horace, and Horace actually is helping us with writing copy and all sorts of things. So when somebody on the team isn't available, they say, well, let's use Horace. So anyways, they've been using that for about 2 years, very successfully. So a company of my size can expand its capacity. So that's great, operational efficiency. And then we are going through a digital transformation right now where our ERP and our e-commerce platforms, so we actually are a wholesaler and we are direct-to-consumer merchant. I didn't say that up front. We compete next to our customers and also our vendors. So figuring out our ecosystem where we're serving hobby shops as well as being a great direct-to-consumer merchant can be really tricky. So having a whole new backbone that's kind of native to AI is going to be really foundational to what we're able to do and have data in front of us to make better, more dynamic decisions. So looking forward to that, but that's we're in it. And we have a ways to go, but that'll be foundational to how we'll operate.
Yeah, we've been using productivity tools internally in the office environment for some time now. As I mentioned, we did our first AI hackathon not too long ago. We're looking for different use cases to use in manufacturing environment. That's a really hard place to deploy AI tools successfully. So we're partnering with some vendors and looking for internally creative ideas and how do you launch a new product faster, right? Once you have a print that you coded on, you won the project, and then how fast can you launch that project, right? Do you have to go program every machine, right? Manually, or can your AI tools automatically program that machine for you? So those are different areas that we're exploring at this point.
Mm-hmm. When you did the hackathon, did you just give a blank sheet and said, hey, bring out your AI ideas, or Did you kind of narrow a specific problem, or how'd you look at that?
So it was our CIO is sitting over there. We did just opened it up to the entire company. We had about a little over 35 people that signed up for those 2.5 days, 2 days. And then, they self-selected, 4 to 5 people in a team. And then they went on and picked a topic, and then they worked on that. And then at the end of the 2 days of hackathon, a few of us, then, the leadership team and a few other folks that are experts in the area, then we sat in a room and judged almost like Shark Tank, right? We sort of judged each one of those ideas and then prioritized on which ones we want to invest in right away. So we picked 3 different projects and the company's actually going to invest in, hard dollars and resources to go explore, right? And how can we go implement those ideas? And then the others, some of them we said, look, just do it, right? Just go pick up a tool, go explore that. So again, we're at the very beginning stages of the journey, but we're trying to solve some serious manufacturing problems with AI, and I think that's going to take some time. And that ecosystem is not fully developed right now, right? Like everyone knows ChatGPT and Perplexity or whatever other tools are out there, but how do you solve a manufacturing problem, a quality problem, a productivity problem within a manufacturing setting? That's really where manufacturers like us can, if we can solve that, we can get real competitive with Asian competitors, right? Some other places that are making this with brute force or cheap labor, we can be more productive in the long run, right? So that's the goal in the long run for us.
Mm-hmm.
With agentic AI in particular, we met with this fellow, Ethan Malik, who's a leader in the field and has been for a decade. So I asked him what's changed as of late. He said, well, for the past 2 decades, no one cared what I thought, and for the past year, everyone cares what I thought. So you can imagine his world's changed a little bit. If you get the chance, he's worth following and really has some good stuff he writes that gives you good tips. He did a really nice job with our leadership team, helping us all understand how you can use it. He actually walks you through different examples, helps you implement stuff as a team. So pretty neat stuff. So we did that probably about 1.5 years ago. And since then, it's been incorporated into our strategic planning process. So each leader had to get with their team and come up with low to high priority in each part of their function or business unit. Where could AI change the game? And then prioritize those use cases, and then also did it throughout our org to try and identify more use cases. And have just done this standard prioritization across the board. And there's some that really aren't that complex. You just start doing it. And there's some that are super complex and would take a lot of resources, right? But so that's a huge part of what we're doing. I would say the other backbone piece, has anyone here heard of Lotus Notes? Mm-hmm. We were one of the lone survivors on Lotus Notes I think we just switched off of it like 8 years ago maybe. It's all a blur, but something like that. So we were one of the lone survivors of Lotus. So you can imagine our master data is not the cleanest thing in the world. So we've had a lot of work going into cleaning our master data, which has actually become a lot easier than it used to be. But that allows you to use AI on top of your data so that you make sure it's not garbage in, garbage out. So, we're doing a lot of projects like that provide the foundation to layer on AI over time and ensure we can make sure those use cases are fruitful. And then on the customer solution side, using it throughout R&D, we do a lot of stuff with sensors, a lot of stuff with providing data to our customers. So using AI to do that in the most fruitful way to provide customer value. So across our product development cycles, it's being used as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a whole new world of technology and possibilities out there with AI. We are out of time for our panel discussion, so I want to take the time and thank our panelists for being part of the conversation, and welcome Dan back up to the stage to wrap us up. Thanks so much. Thank you.